here with Erica and Lily. We want to thank everybody for coming. Please give yourself a hand. This is our first community educational listening session. The first part of it will be Lily. She will be doing a civic presentation on how to properly contact your alderman. After that, we will open up the floor. Everything here?
No, that's good.
All right, we'll let Lily do what she does. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Brandy. Hi, everyone. Lily Rocha here. I'm an Aurora resident. I am currently working for a nonprofit, but this is kind of just like on the side. I'd like to talk about effective ways to contact your legislators. So I used to work for legislators, and I've seen the way to really do it to be effective and to make sure that you're getting your message across. I just want to share some tips with you. And I'll be focusing really today on the City of Aurora, since that's the most local jurisdiction for us, and I think it's a really impactful way to make sure that we're civically engaged. Just real quickly, federalism means that the way our government's structured, we have 3 levels, right? You guys know federal, which is DC, makes laws for the entire nation. We have the state, which is Springfield, makes laws for Illinois. And then we have the local ones, which for our purposes will be the Aurora City Council and the mayor who make ordinances for the city. But you also have local entities like the county and the school board, and so other smaller local units of jurisdiction as well. So the City of Aurora, as you guys know, our mayor is Richard Urban, and this is kind of like an outline of how things go, right? So you see at the top, or at the very top, it says citizens. That's because we're the boss. Okay? And then after that, we have the City Council, which we'll talk about in a bit in terms of how to find out who they are, who represents you, and how to get in touch with them. And then after that, we have the mayor, boards and commissions, the alderman's office, and then underneath all of that, we have a lot of administrative units of government that make sure that our city runs and make sure that every day things get done in the city. So let's talk about a little bit about the council now. So this Aurora City Council is really interesting because it's actually 12. Instead of council members, they're called aldermen. I'm not sure where that term came from. I know Chicago also uses that. It's slightly problematic in the sense that it's gendered. Some people care about that. I do. Some people don't. Okay. That's a discussion we can have. But either way, we have 12 alder representatives, alder people, who are representing a ward. A ward is basically the City of Aurora is broken up into like 10 different pieces, right? Every one of those is called a ward. And every ward is represented by alderperson or alderman. Then we have 2 aldermen who represent the entire City of Aurora. So they're just like the 2 at large because they represent everyone. So the 2 at large plus the 10 that represent the certain sections of Aurora, the certain wards, that's how we get the 12. So what are their duties, right? So they convene, they come together, they write ordinances for the city, they pass, for example, the city budget, they help make sure that we have the laws here in Aurora to make sure that everything's running well. They also, in addition, really interestingly, get about, and I have to check if this number is current, but it was current as of 2019, they get $75,000 in discretionary money to spend in your ward. Discretionary means it's up to them, right? So I talked to an alderman and I was like, hey, what kind of uses do you have for the $75K? Like, where does it go? One thing I heard, for example, was, local charities in the district. So it could be like a food bank, or it could be something like that. It could also go for, additional signage, things like that. My question too is, how do I know as a taxpayer where this money is going? I'm not quite sure I know, but that's something you could ask your alderman if you're interested in learning about where this money is going. They also just want to be clear, they're part-time. So one of the issues that I've heard from folks in terms of how do you create a representative unit of government when the only people that can really run or be on it are people who have the flexibility to be part-time or have the flexibility to be part-time legislators, right? So for example, if you're a teacher or you're a nurse, you may not have the ability to join a 4 p.m. council meeting, or you might not be able to join in, some of the activities that require you to have a very flexible schedule. That's something that other cities and entities are tackling as well, so I know it's not unique to Aurora. That's definitely an issue that could be discussed at any point. So we have our aldermen who are part-time. They're part-time employees of the city. They have an actual physical office in downtown Aurora. I don't know if anybody's ever been there. I've walked by it, never been in, but yeah. And then they have a different mailing address. So there's the physical address and then the mailing address in case anybody is into snail mail. And so I talked about Aurora being divided up into TET districts. Those are here on the map. Every one of them is called a ward. And the wards go by numbers. So for example, I live in Ward 6. So if you look at the 6, then that orangey type of thing, that's in the area that I live. So I'm in Ward 6. So my alderman is the alderman from Ward 6. You guys have your own representative based on where you live. If you also live in the orange part, you also have my representative. But likely all of you are from different parts of the city, so we have representation all throughout. So you see from like the far west side, like what's it called, Orchard Valley area, past there all the way to like the southeast side, southeast side, all the way up to like the northeast side, past the outlet mall. So Aurora's pretty big, so you see we have a lot of representation required. So who are they? Well, here they are. Based on where you live, on the ward number, you have an elected official who represents you. Right now, this is current, this is their email, and this is their phone number. Oh yeah, sorry, this is not current. My bad. So this is not as current as it should be, but it's okay. But we do have 2 aldermen at large. So again, that person represents you as well as your alderman. And it's not a problem. And then so then you have the emails and then you have the phone numbers, right? How did I find this? I just Googled City of Aurora alderman, and I got into the city's webpage. It gave me this information, and I was able to pull it together. And I just compiled it into this little spreadsheet. But overall, you can find all of this information online. And you have some aids. Again, I have to check on the current status of this, but I will say as a former staffer, it is so important to contact the aides. I cannot tell you how much work they do behind the scenes. They're the ones who are in their day-to-day, actually getting things done, making their bosses look good. So sometimes if you're not getting a response, you might want to try one of the aides and see if maybe they'll pick up and see what's going on. So why should we contact them? Really a couple reasons. I'm sure all of you guys know. You pay taxes, right? You pay their salaries. So yeah, I think that suffices for me, but also just, philosophically, this is a representative democracy, meaning that we elect somebody to represent our interests in official capacities in the governmental administration. So there you go, that's why you should contact them. And they really do vote based on feedback from the community. I know a lot of people don't feel this way, especially people from like our communities, like my communities, like Black and brown communities, low-income communities, immigrants, LGBTQ communities, communities with disabilities, just a lot of communities. And so I know, I get it, but I have to tell you, it really does matter. They really do listen to you because they want your votes. Why? Because they want to keep staying in office. Is that necessarily a bad thing? No. Because literally that's a system that we have, right? We elect somebody to represent us in office. The way they do that is by getting elected into that position to represent you. How do you get elected? You get votes. It's not necessarily nefarious on its own. That's the way the system is set up. But, there are ways that people can interpret it in a way that does become, unfortunately very disingenuous. But there are a lot of people out there who do good work and do want to get reelected because they want to continue the work that they're doing. Also, I will say you have leverage. You're the constituent. Oftentimes, I would have, a resident meet with the legislator I was working with, and they were always so awestruck and starstruck. And I was like, why? Like, you're their boss, right? Like, I get that these people may be like, you know, superstars in the community, well known in the paper, they're public figures, it can be intimidating. But at the end of the day, you have the leverage. Like, you're the one who's saying, I understand, but you're representing me, and these are my needs. So this was taken from something I found online in terms of like how effective is it to hear from folks, and like when I hear from somebody, a constituent, if I'm an elected official, in what way does that outreach really influence me, right? So you can see email messages are like 56% effective, all the way to in-person issue visits from constituents, which is 94% effective. And you can see there's a direct correlation between the level of time and effort that you put in. So the more time and effort you put into it, the more likely you are going to be able to make an impact on things. And I think that's sensible and common sense. This, again, is for the U.S. Congress, so the system in D.C. that with our U.S. Congress and with the Senate together. So not necessarily from anything in the Illinois legislature or the Aurora government, but similar principles apply. So how do you actually do it, right? So one of the things is that you can meet them in person or via Zoom right now in our virtual world. That's definitely an option for some folks. And so how do you actually do it? You simply email them. You can go online, you can Google it, you can look around the City of Aurora's webpage, look for the aldermen, find their emails. They're not hidden, they're prominently displayed, so you'll be able to find them. You go to your Gmail, you plop in the email that you found, and then you start typing. And you say, hey, my name is Lily. I live in Ward 6. I'd like to talk to you about speeding in residential streets. I really feel like this is an issue. I've seen like kids playing on the sidewalk, and I'm just worried there's going to be an accident. Is there a time we can meet to discuss this? And you can give them your information, whatever, and then you can also feel free to re-up emails and also CC the aldermen. So again, like if they don't respond within a week, usually you might just be like, hey, re-upping this email, and then that's when you can add the aides emails that I saw. Add them in there, hit send, goes out. And then prep. You might want to think a little bit about what you say and follow up, and I'll talk about both of those. You can also just email them, right? Like maybe you don't want to meet in person, or maybe you just really want to get a message across, maybe about an ordinance that they're voting on, or maybe like a city budget issue. Maybe you realize like, hey, like how much money goes into policing versus community services versus you know, other services, anything like that. You just email them. So again, literally opening up your email, grabbing the email you found from the webpage online, typing out the message, and sending it. I know this sounds kind of borderline condescending for me to like explain how to send an email, but I really want you to visualize yourself doing it, because if you don't, you won't do it. Because you think that they're out of reach, that they're not for you, that they're there to be bought out by big money, or whatever connotations people have about politicians and elected officials in general, not just for Aurora, but definitely all politicians. So I definitely want to make sure that you guys understand this is something you can do. I mean, how many of you have sent an email before, right? Like, you can send an email. And again, what will you say? You could say something like, again, my name is Lily, I live in Ward 6. You definitely want to identify the fact that you're a constituent. The higher up you go, the more emails you get, the more people reaching out to you get, but the only ones you're going to be worried about are the ones that you represent, because they're the ones that you represent. They're the ones who vote for you. They're the ones who are holding you accountable to what you're doing. So you want to make sure that you identify yourself as a resident from that area. You'll definitely be prioritized over other people who reach out to them. And you can share your problem. Like, I want to talk about this. I think this is an issue. Sorry guys, I'm just like having trouble breathing and talking at the same time. And then, you know, I ask that you consider, and then you can possibly give them an ask. What do you want them to do? So, for example, if I'm the elected official and I see that you email me about this issue, like, what do you, like, I get that it's a problem, like, what like want me to do, right? Like, you don't have to have the full answer. You don't have to have like the full policy solution. You definitely don't have to be a policy expert. But you could say something like, I'd like for you, and going with my example, I'd like for you to, you know, present some ways to slow down traffic to the community at our next community meeting, or I'd like for you to have a community meeting to talk about this issue. Again, you don't have to be a policy expert, and I really actually, when I was a staffer, I tended to prioritize regular people who weren't politicals, who weren't being organized by outside organizations, who weren't sending form letters. I think in all the times that I was in DC working as a congressional aide, I think I had maybe 2 visits. I was there 3.5 years from folks just out of the blue wanting to contact their elected officials. I had a few where they were organized by an organization and they had like a lobby day and they took them there and that's what they did, which are effective, but I know to expect them, I know where we are, it's like a thing, it's helpful, but definitely just what really stood out to me was like, wow, this person came in, and the thing is like if one person cares enough to come and talk to you about it, it's an issue in the district, and that elected official better pay attention. So definitely contact your elected officials. Okay. And again, give them ways to contact you, right? Obviously, it's going to be a conversation. And then maybe you can call them on the phone, too. I know there are some older people and just general elected officials that prefer talking on the phone and kind of just want to chat it out. Here's my number, give me a call, and we can talk about the issue. And then you can just compose what you want to say. I would say don't make it a script. Try to be as organic as possible, but maybe you want to have a couple bullet notes of like, make sure I say this, or make sure I mention this, make sure I mention this. It's not a bad idea. You don't have to do it if you really don't have time to prep, but if you want to just feel a little bit more prepared, that's definitely an option. And then, you know, speak to them, and then again, follow up. Okay. So that's kind of, you know, what you would say in terms of just reaching out to them via email, in-person meetings, actually just talking to them on the phone, giving them the problem, giving them an ask, giving your information, and then following up with them and being like, hey, so what was the outcome of that? I know we had a community meeting to talk about speeding on the streets. We identified, you know, solution 1, 2, and 3. Can you tell me like what the next steps are? Like, what are you planning to do with options 1, 2, and 3? That's accountability. We talk about holding people accountable. It's literally asking them via email, what are you gonna do about this? That is what accountability looks like. Yes, it's marching. Yes, it's making signs. Yes, it's yelling, but it's also emailing. I cannot stress that enough. And so the other way is city council meetings. So the city council, as I mentioned, convenes every 2 weeks, right? Yes, every 2 weeks. Sorry, it's been a while since I talked about city council. And so they convene every 2 weeks to talk about city matters. They vote on things. So for example, let's say the member that I talked to was like, you know what? We went to that town hall and people were like, hey, why don't we put up a couple of the speeding radar signs up? And the alderman then proposes it during city council meetings. There's technicalities about committees and et cetera, things like that. But that's something that they could debate and be like, you know, is this something that we could spend money on, that we could allocate and make sure that we're getting that in that neighborhood, because my residents are saying that there's a need for that. So this is where they would discuss it as a whole. And so the best way to do that is to tune in. They were having it virtually. I think they're still having it virtually, right? No? It's in person now? So they were having it virtually. You could call in during the Zoom and kind of give your opinion. But what you can do now, too, is you can also go to these meetings, and I encourage you to go. Some of it's really mundane stuff. It's not all, you know, social policy and dismantling systemic racism, unfortunately. Sometimes it's like, oh, I think we need to get, like, new garbage cans out to the residents. Not super sexy or exciting, but, like, you know, nonetheless, that's what your money's paying for, so it's good to know what's going on. The city council meetings, 5 p.m., second and fourth Tuesday of the month, and it's at City Hall in downtown Aurora. And then during the pandemic, they did have it on Facebook Live, but you can always find the calendar and all the details on aurorail.org, and just like look up city council minutes, look up what they're going to talk about. They always have an agenda, so you can look at that agenda and see what they're going to talk about. Maybe it really is like things you don't really like care about. You're like, that's literally why I elected you, to take care of those things I really don't care about. So I'm not going to spend my time talking about like do blue trash cans or yellow trash, like I don't care. But maybe one day they're going to be talking about something that you do care, maybe funding for a program that your kid is in, or maybe something for, that your community gets as a resource, and now they're thinking about maybe slashing it or taking it away or changing it. That's where you really want to be at the table and in these conversations. So how do you do it? You do have to sign up to speak, so you can just email the city clerk, be like, hey, I'd like to talk, leave a voicemail. And again, all of this is online. You can just go to the City of Aurora website, and I'm sure if you have any questions, you can always reach out to the Grassroots Alliance folks who can provide more information about the logistics on how to do it, but know that once you do it once, you'll figure it out. You won't need to do it, think about it too much again, because you'll kind of get the gist of it. And again, it is your right as a citizen of Aurora to be at those meetings where they discuss how they're going to be spending the money that gets taken out of your paycheck. And I think that is something worth considering, because it's a lot of money they take out of the paycheck. Okay, so what do you say? Whether you're talking in person or I want to make sure that she's okay. But that's right, that's a human story. They're like, if you increase 10%, I'm gonna go like, cool. I mean, I remember I was in meetings in DC and like in and out, and they were like, here are the fact sheets, here's the data. And I was like, data matters, but I think everything should be story-led, data supported. Like story-led, data supported. And then you also want to give them a specific action to take. What's the ask? Like, what do you want me to do, right? Like, I remember also working for elected officials where people just rant. And I was like, I have no idea what to do with this, right? Like, do you want me to, like, call a state agency about this? Do you want me to, like, find other resources for you? Like, what do you want, right? Help me help you. And then ask them to get back to you. You know, that's the thing. It's like, I remember working for one elected official who was like, you know, if they don't really ask for a reply, then you don't have to reply. And I was like, seems kind of messed up, but okay. But just know that there are some elected officials who do think like that. So sometimes I just say, just make it explicit, like, hope to hear from you soon. Provide your contact information. You'd be surprised how many people don't. Like, even though it's an email, right? Sometimes I'll email them and then I'll get like a bounce back because then they just got rid of that account and there's no phone number and I'm like, I can't reach you. So it seems trivial, but it's really not. Build a relationship. So what does this mean? It means that they should know you. They should know you and should be thinking about you. And so, for example, if I'm like, you know, talking about speeding cars and traffic, if an ordinance or a bill comes up that has to do with that issue, guess who they're going to think about? They're going to think about me. And they're going to be like, oh shit, what's Lily going to say? Like, if I vote yes or no, like, what would her reaction be? And I know she votes, and I know she contacts me. So I better make sure, like, I know why I'm voting for the thing that I vote for. And that's, again, holding people accountable. That's literally what it looks like. And also, it's okay if you don't think you're a good writer or speaker. I've had people who are like, well, I just like so shy, I don't like talking in public, I'm an introvert, I have no idea what to say, I would stutter. I was like, no, that literally doesn't matter. Because like, if you want to sit there and stutter, I'll wait, I'll
like, we'll sit down, and if it takes you an hour to get out your story, then we'll sit down and talk about it for an hour. And at the end of the day is that you share your story, you share your concerns with your elected officials. So, especially I know, people who maybe speak another language, sometimes they're just self-conscious about speaking another language, or possibly, being like, I can't fully communicate in English. Well, then that elected official needs to know that they have constituents who don't speak only English. And so maybe that's something that they should work on. Right? So you being there makes a huge, huge difference. And again, just the best messages are civil. I would always disregard messages that came in, they were like, you're bleep, 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 or like, all you Democrats are blah, 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 or all politicians are corrupt, blah, 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 because I'm like, you just want to rant and you're angry and like, there's not a real concern here, right? I mean, I would read it through once in a great while, maybe there was an actual thing that came out of it, but for the most part, I'd say like 95% of the messages I got were just people ranting, and I disregarded them. So be civil. That doesn't mean you're passive. That does not mean you're passive, right? You can be firm, but civil. Clear. Like, what's the issue? How do you want me to fix it? Like, if I'm 5 years old, how would you explain to me? Concise. Shorter is better. I've had constituents who would send in like 3 pages worth of a story and PDFs of like the mail that they sent in and like pictures, and it was just like, I don't understand what's the issue, so I would have to read 3 pages over and over to try to figure out how we could help them. Concise, clear, and specific, again, right? And then also consistent. So that means you follow up. That means you ask, hey, like, what happened with that? Hey, what's going on? Hey, I saw you voted like this in committee. That's not really what we talked about. Can you tell me why you voted that way? Recognize intimidation. So sometimes elected officials, most of them, I will say, like, are pretty nice, decent people who like really care and want to help you out. There are some folks who do have an ego and want to make it a point to make sure that you know that they're the elected official. But work through it, because at the end of the day, their names are on the ballot, and you can vote for them or against them. So that's not. Don't let that projection of their insecurity go onto you. And maybe you're relaxed. Again, it's so critically important. I mean, I've been literally in situations where we're like, we don't know how we're going to vote. And so we're like, well, this was a question on the referendum. It was like it was actually a question on the last election, like on the ballot. So why don't we pull up that data and see how people voted on that? They're like, oh, overwhelmingly they supported it. And we're like, okay, then she should vote yes for it. Literally, so it's like, it actually matters, right? Or there were times where it's like, oh my God, this bill is coming up, it impacts young adults, like who could we go to get their opinion? And then like, we put something like on social media, and then folks would just be like, oh, all politicians are blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, no, I want to get into the nuance of policy, like how would this impact you? Would this be good or would this be bad, right? So they're always seeking input, so definitely make sure. And the other reason is that maybe they don't, and that's great. You need to know that too. Maybe you're like, hey, like, I really care about this, my cat, plus my neighbor's kid, plus whatever, like, we really need some sort of like speed reduction program or something on the street. And then they're like, I don't know, like, I just feel like there's other things to worry about. I'd be like, oh, good to know. Good to know where you are, right? So that's something that I'll keep in mind when I'm voting, or if I'm deciding if I want to run for office, or if I want to decide if I want to support somebody else and support their campaign for alderperson, because they're like, I do care about street safety, and that is something that I'll actually work on. And also, really set the example for you and your family. All of us here, we're just people, right? We're not the DC lobbyists, we're not the Springfield Sharks, we're just people. Work, and have families, and we have hobbies, and we come to things like this and whatever. But we're the ones that don't get hurt in a lot of discussions, right? So you being there sets an example for your little cousin, for your aunt, for your neighbors, for people that look like you. So you being there, you're setting an example. And also again, I mean, this was like 5-6 years ago now that I was working in DC, but there was not a lot of variety or diversity in who came in and talked to me. Like, they were mostly all like, white lobbyists. I don't have a lot of black and brown people come in. I think that the few times that I did, like, I was low-key like, yes, so happy you're here. Like, what can we do to help you? I was trying to, I was so thrilled to have somebody that looks like me be in that room with the congresswoman and be like, hey, this is what I care about. Rarely happened, but when it did, I was like, so I really need you guys to do it because I'd love to see more people like you there. And yeah, again, I cannot, it's probably the 20th time I've said this. Your voice really does matter. It sounds very cliche. It's like a thing people say when they're like, oh yeah, you should vote. Like, government really matters. Like, no, it doesn't. I can tell you that, like, not so much from a philosophical standpoint of like, oh, everybody should be represented and blah, blah, blah. I'm just telling you from like a very practical point of literally I pulled up like constituent comments before to recommend, to decide how I recommend that the congresswoman should vote on a bill, yes or no. I was like, I don't know. Let me see what the inbox says and what the email messages are saying. Oh, people love this bill. Yes. You're a congresswoman. You should vote yes on HB 75. So yeah, again, very practical. We can get into the philosophies later and the complications of our current system at another point, but on a very baseline level, it does matter. Yeah, and just follow up and say thank you, keep at them. They're not always going to respond to you. That is also telling, right? So they don't. That's something to keep in mind. Also, I think there are some press who would like to learn about that. The last thing an elected official wants is a newspaper article about some constituent being like, or some resident being like, I tried to talk to my legislator and they would not listen to me. They were rude, they were awful. That's the last thing they want. So I don't know if it happens a lot, like the press is not an option. Say thank you. Oftentimes we would get so many calls of like, I don't know how people are elected officials. It's, to be honest, a shitty job because you're just getting asked to do things all the time and you're being judged by it all the time, right? So if you voted yes, you're a hero. If you voted no, you're a traitor. We hate you. You're awful. You're gonna die. It is a demanding job. So you also do. There's no sidewalks on my street, so it's another time before there's an accident and some kid or a pet or a person is hurt. So I'm going to be emailing my alderman tonight and ask him if we could talk about it. So you guys, take that time to do that, and also apply it to other levels. You have state representatives, state senators who go to Springfield and make laws for you that apply to the entire state of Illinois. And then you have 2 senators and a representative that go to DC and make laws on your behalf in DC for the entire country. So, talk to them too. And they are not just in DC, they're not in Springfield, they all have district offices, meaning they all have offices in the area that they represent. So, we see Senator Durbin, who's a high profile senator, been senator of Illinois for a long time. It's like, how could I ever talk to him? Well, he's got an office in Chicago. Like, if you really wanted to, just drive over and meet with his staff, and then you're getting to talk to Senator Durbin. You can email him. You can call his office. You can do all these things. So, they seem like they're high-level folks who are hard to reach, but
trust me, they're people who just want to, hear you out, and yeah, I think that's it. Any questions? No? Thank you. Yes?
No question. So generally we take a vote for an business for an elected official. What if you cannot work? What if you're undocumented? How do you make it funny knowing that you're committed or have you
Yeah, no, that's a great point. You should still contact them. Just because you can't vote, some people will take that into account and be like, oh, they don't vote, like, I don't care about them, they don't matter. But some won't. And also, again, I think that's telling if they really will, like, not listen to you, if they're like, oh, well, I know it's an issue with them, but that's in their community, not, they don't vote. That's telling. And I think there's so many other ways you can write an op-ed to your newspaper, which I know is like old school because who reads newspapers, right? But without a paywall. But you actually can write to the Beacon News and be like, hey, this is my issue. And by the way, I tried to talk to so-and-so, but since I may not be able to vote, I had a hard time reaching so-and-so. I think you could also, volunteer for candidates that you care about. So maybe you see somebody who's actually running to actually do something, right? So you could be like, hey, like, how can I help you? Can I knock on doors for you? Can I, talk to people about you? Can I share your Facebook page or whatever with folks? So there's definitely a lot of ways that you can still be impactful, and you're still able to come in public spaces. Like, it's for people. They're not going to check your citizenship status or ask you about your immigrant status or visa status when you're submitting comment or when you're walking in the door to city council. That's not going to happen. If they do, that's illegal. And so you will be okay. You do have space to be heard, and I really, really encourage you to do it because, again, we need more people like that in the public arena. Cool. Anything else? No? Okay. All right. Thanks, guys. Bye. Also, I do have to leave, unfortunately, because I know this is a community session about police reform. I am on the civilian review board for the City of Aurora, so I'm just going to recuse myself just to make sure there's no conflict. But I do invite you to come and give public comment to the civilian review board meetings. So we meet on the last Thursday, the fourth Thursday of every third Thursday of every month. Ooh, okay, go to the City of Aurora's webpage and look at the civilian review board. And I'm sure Nicole and Brandy will post about it. And so before every meeting, they're like, hey, is there anybody from the public that wants to just talk to the civilian review board? We've had, I think, 3 meetings so far. We've had 0 speakers. So just putting that out there, that nobody's spoken up. Okay, thanks, bye.
And I have lived in Aurora most of my life. I know a lot of you here. I don't know how many people are attending through Facebook Live, right? So we are all here because we care about Aurora, right? We all see things that Aurora could improve, and that's why we're here. We're here to share our thoughts. So like we just learned, there's several ways to get involved with our elected officials to share those concerns with them, right? Tell them what we see wrong, as well as maybe even have some ideas of how to fix those issues. So we are going to be opening up the floor to anyone who has any type of concerns or ideas that we see that Aurora could utilize, could implement, and we see would make Aurora better. Right, so if anyone has any comment, we are going to open up the floor, 3 minutes max for each person who wants to share. So we have a range of topics, like I said, right? We could talk about the budget of the City of Aurora, how they allocate their money every year, including the police budget. We could talk about anything we see with issues with applying for grants or any other kind of funding for either local organizations, events that you want to plan, or nonprofits, right? We could talk about any FOIA, so that is a Freedom of Information Act. So if there's anything that the city does, it should be available for the public. So if you have ever gone through that process, if you see any issues with it that you want to share, this is the moment where you can come up and share. Do we have any volunteers? No? Alrighty, our first volunteer. Would you please give your name and 3 minutes, okay, sir?
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Brandy Gilliam. I'm a member of the Aurora Grassroots Alliance and the Pobum Society. I submitted a FOIA request to the City of Aurora because last year they held 5 listening sessions. At these listening sessions, they video recorded the listening sessions. They had the camera plus the tripod there. So I FOIA requested for the video. The city gave me 2 videos and said that the other 3 did not exist. So I FOIA requested again. They did the same thing, so I appealed to the Attorney General. So they did an investigation, and according to the Attorney General, the city said at the 3 listening sessions that I did not get the video, they only had the camera there to take pictures, still shots, which I don't believe that is true. And according to the mayor and also other members of city council, they needed these listening sessions to grab data. It's impossible to grab data with a still picture. And one of the listening sessions was only held at the only black church, not the only black church, what I'm trying to say, yes, it was the only one that was held at a black church, and they did not video record that, but they claimed that the listening sessions came from the outcry of stuff that happened in downtown Aurora. So how can you have a listening session at a black church and not video recorded, but at the 2 white churches you video recorded? Then you claim that you only took pictures at the 3 listening sessions where people heavily criticized the Aurora Police Department, the mayor, and city council. So I think it's suspect and it's not transparent, because the listening sessions, you have to FOIA request them to even have access to them, and that's not right. They should be readily accessible to the public, where you just click on it and you have to see it. You shouldn't have to go through all of the formalities just to see something that was in a public space for the public. I guess that's all.
All right, thank you, Brandy. So I think that's important, right? So we talk about safe space and where people feel comfortable sharing what they go through, right? Personal stories often changes the perception of what people hear too. So sharing those personal stories, you need to feel safe. If it's your church that you go to, right? That's already, it gives you that safety that what's going to be said here is going to be taken serious because it's around your people, right? So that's a good point. Would anyone else like to come up to have the floor and share anything that they've experienced, they've seen happen in their community? All right, Miss, could you please come up here and say your name and share your thoughts up to 3 minutes, okay?
As I blind myself. Hello, my name is Nicole Mullins, and I am also a part of the Aurora Grassroots Alliance, and I'm also on the board for Culture Stock. To piggyback on what Brandy had said regarding the city's FOIA compliance, Pobum Society has on their YouTube channel the 2 videos from the listening sessions that we were able to obtain. If you'd like to watch them, just look up Pobum Society's YouTube page, and both of the videos are there. But Culture Stock had a similar experience in 2018. Long story short, we were tenants of the City of Aurora, and the building that we were tenants in had a toxic black mold issue, we learned, in early 2018. The city denies this. However, we have 6 years of experience of leaking water in the building, combined with an air quality test that we paid ourselves to have conducted. The city claimed to have had an air quality test conducted themselves. They would not give us a copy of the report. We asked them multiple times. As tenants, we should have been given that without question. We did receive an email saying air quality was found to be good, no mold detected, in an old building located on the river that has frequent water leakage issues. The likelihood that there is no mold is impossible. Maybe no toxic mold, but no mold is absolutely impossible. So that's what prompted us to request a copy of the report. After the city ignored numerous emails, we finally FOIA requested it. And when we FOIA requested it, the city has a representative that is a FOIA officer, that is an employee of the city that responds to FOIA requests. That employee contacts the relative departments to ask for the documentation, and then they respond to the FOIA requester accordingly. So that employee, the FOIA officer, was told that they did not have such a report. We replied back that yes, we did. Here's the emails verifying that this city employee said that they were going to have a test conducted. The FOIA requester then went back to them and sent us a paper that looked like it was faxed from like 1997. The quality was horrible. I don't believe the accuracy of that. I don't believe it was a legitimate document. And anyway, that's what prompted us to get our own air quality test, which came back positive for 3 different types of toxic black mold. So, moral of my story is I have also had an experience where the city is non-compliant and not truthful in the FOIA request, and I don't know how we get around that. We could have appealed to the Attorney General, but it appears, according to Brandy's experience, the Attorney General just does their own questions to city employees. The city employees say what they want to say, and the Attorney General takes it for face value. So I don't know where that gets us, but it would be helpful if more people speak up in holding the city accountable when these requests are made, because otherwise we have groups like Aurora Grassroots Alliance or Culture Stock who are speaking and asking for these things and asking for accountability with no additional voices behind it. So that's why it's important for us to rally behind each other. So that's my 2 cents.
Thank you, Nicole. All right, so we have heard from 2 different individuals talking about the Freedom of Information Act that every elected official is subject to, right? We can even FOIA emails if we really wanted to. So does anyone else have any comments about budget, about funding, grant applications, policing, any other city organization that you wish would have increase of their budget? Something you see there's a need in your community that you would like to see? Making eye contact to everyone. Anyone? Okay, well, fun fact, right? 2016 to 2021,
I like to talk about
Policing, yes. Okay, you can come up here, you can state your name, and you have up to 3 minutes to make any public comment.
My name is Felicia Wheatley. I'm the parent of Damian Totten, Totton, Damein. My son's been incarcerated in the Kane County Jail since 2017 without a trial. I don't know if you guys are familiar about this situation, but I'm a mother. I have 7 children, 6 boys and 1 girl. My daughter being the youngest, she's 15. I'd like to take just a moment to tell you a little bit about my situation. Because I'm a low-income person, my son never had an opportunity to have legal assistance for any of his crimes that they accused him of committing. I'm just a single mom who just got recently married only 6 years ago. We'll be married for 7 years, December 31st. He's been their father for the last 19 years, though. the city of Aurora has took my kids and put them into a certain type of pod. They make them look as if they're a danger to the community. They're not a danger to the community. There are kids that have been exposed to different situations when they were really young. Drug selling in the community, from my brothers to my nephews. And now my son is another person that's incarcerated since 2017 for a crime that the police officers tried to hide. They did not allow me to sit with my son. They gave him a juvenile advocate when I was available, as well as my husband when we were called. He doesn't have a trial date. I'm upset about the situation about Miss Christie, the previous person that was head of the Aurora Police Department, Christine, that all of a sudden left the police department without any excuse. And now we have a new person in charge of the Aurora Police Department that may not know about my son's case. I'm upset because I'm a mom. I was a single mom for a long time before I had my husband. And I've always had problems with my children because of the exposure to the things that were happening in the city of Aurora. The known drug houses that they never shut down. The known drug dealers that they never picked up. It all trickles down to the younger individuals, our minor children that they're locking up, our black and brown children that don't have the money to afford the legal assistance that they need. It is a shame that people with money get away with crimes that they actually committed. Kyle Rittenhouse, most recently, get away with murdering 2 people and injuring a 3rd one without any recourse. I wonder what the world would have looked like if these people that he injured were black. The city of Michigan did not go up because they were white. Doesn't make a difference to me. Those people were out there fighting for Black Lives Matters. We matter. Just because we're poor and indigent doesn't mean that we doesn't need like a lawyer. Someone that can speak for us. Someone that can advocate for us. I had a federal lawsuit that was actually thrown out of court because they would not give me an attorney because they said I was a college-educated person. I'm not an attorney. I'm not an attorney. I'm a mom fighting for my son's life. They offered my son 43 years at 17 years old. That's a life sentence. I will never hug him again. They snatched him when he was not in my home. I'm trying to get exposure to my son's case because I'm just a mom with no money for an attorney and trying to get my son's case to a trial. 12 people that can decipher if he's guilty or not. The state already has him guilty. The judge even said he was guilty. The judge, who's supposed to be biased. My son does not have no chance in the Kane County District of fighting his case. And all I want to know is, can I get some help? Kyle Rittenhouse got help. He murdered 2 people. He injured the 3rd one. He got off because of Ricky and the rest of the group. You know, this is not a GoFundMe. This is not a GoFundMe. This is a mom trying to figure out, why is my son is still in King County Jail after 4 years? 4 years? Are you kidding me? It takes this long to prosecute someone? Murderers go to jail faster and get out quicker. They offered my 16-year-old son 43 years. Do they not think we're gonna go to trial? That's a life sentence. I'm 48. Do you think I have 43 years left in this body? I don't. I will never hug my son again if I let them get him. I'm not gonna let him get him. I'm gonna fight. They threw my case out of federal court because they said, I have a college degree. I don't need an attorney. I need an attorney because I'm not a lawyer. I'm a mom of 7 kids, 6 boys, 1 girl. Do you honestly think I have the time to fight this battle by myself? No. Detective David Bryan lied in court in my son's juvenile case. Detective David Bryan, who used to be a regular police officer for the City of Aurora, but now he was promoted to a detective, but now he might be demoted because of his own actions, sexual assault. How come he's not in court?
Thank you so much. Sorry, I didn't want to interrupt
No.
because that was powerful. Right, we have one of our civil liberties is we have the right to a speedy trial. 4 years is not a speedy trial at all, and I'm sorry I'm going through that. All right, so that was something very powerful. I work at a middle school, so I work with a lot of teenagers. Most of the time it's amazing, right? But a lot of them have absolutely no control over what's going on around them in their neighborhoods, right? A lot of them come from an area that's not the best of Aurora. And they don't have any fault, not with their parents, not with their family, not what's going on down the street, but it all affects them, right? They come to school after a long break, stressed, tired of arguing with family members. So many things go into their brain. They can't focus at school and think about science. They have so much other stuff that's more important, really, right? All right, guys. Anyone else want to share anything?
Come here to speak. Just came to help organize. One of the main things up in Aurora that was up on the demand list from the Pole Bump Society and also from the People's Coalition was to eradicate the gang list. There's people, I'm 47. My son is 20. There's the cops, the police that harassed me when I was in high school are the same ones that harassed him. And some brothers who are 40, 30, 40, 45, 55 are still on the gang list. And when we talk to them about the gang list in the listening sessions. According to them, nobody can be added to the gang list just because your family member is a vice lord or a Latin king, or just because you might live in a gang territory, but we know that's false. This gang list can prevent people from getting work, can prevent people from trying to achieve a higher standard of life. And I think the gang list really has to be looked at. And nobody, if a person hasn't been active for 2 years, they should be off the gang list. If a person is 30, 40, 50, 55, they should be off the gang list. Last summer, me and Sadiq was invited to I don't know what you want to call it, a meeting with some older heads who used to gangbang, and they wanted to do some positive stuff up in the community. And as I was listening, some of these brothers are older than me. They were still being harassed because they was on the goddamn gang list. How can you be 50 and 60 years old on a gang list, and when you have a mortgage, you have children, you go to work every day, but if the police see you, you're still flagged as being on a gang list? That's problematic, and I think that Chief Keef, Chief Cross needs to really look into that, and that needs to be broken up, and it just needs to go away. If a person is gangbang, all right, like it is what it is. And even if a person is on a gang, that doesn't mean they should be on the gang list. It is not against the law to be in a street organization. Whether you agree with it or not, that's not against the law. It's only against the law when you commit criminal activity. So if a person is a Latin king and he's in a gang, so what? He's not committing any illegal activity. If he's a vice lord, deuce, gangster disciple, so what? He's not committing anything. He got his hat broke, he's wearing the colors, so what? He's not gangbanging. So why is he on the gang list at age 13, 14, and 15, and he hasn't even committed a crime yet? That's problematic. So you have brothers who may be in a gang, and you got them on the gang list, but they have no gang activity. They just have affiliation or association. And then you have people who are in their 60 years old, still on the gang list, because their names have never been removed from the gang list. And I think the city really needs to look into that.
Thank you, Brandy. Yeah, we talk about gangs, right? But last time I checked, the KKK wasn't considered one, right? What's the difference between that? Probably their skin tone, but that's just my humble opinion. Okay. Anyone else wish to come up and share any of your thoughts related to the city of Aurora? Any experiences, stories you would like to share? No? Okay.
Hello. Okay, so regarding the gang list, a friend of mine actually made a post about this about a week ago. It's a guy I went to, well, he's older than me. I don't think we were in high school at the same time, but he also went to high school on the east side of Aurora. And he is in his probably mid to late 40s. And he is on this gang list somehow. And for those of you who don't know what this gang list, it's a list of people that are on a list with the Aurora Police Department that says you are in or affiliated with a gang. And so, how did this friend of mine get on the gang list? Well, he was at a party when he was in high school. The party got raided by the police, and there were a lot of gang members at that party. And so
reason that, right? Like, it's because of their circumstances, things happening around their financial issues, a sense of home too, right? A lot of people have family members and they just kind of go into what they see as normal. I had a kid one time tell me, middle schooler, that they were getting into fights a lot in school, arguments, cussing out teachers and teens and all of that good stuff, right? They're like, all my family's a part of gangs, that's all I know. That was powerful to me. That was the first time I've heard a student say that, and the self-awareness that took, right? That's true. Alrighty, it is 7:30. All right, we got one volunteer to come up here. All right, miss, can you please tell your name and you have 3 minutes?
Okay. Hello, my name's Alejandra. I'm from Aurora, born and raised. I'm actually a veteran, and I've had a hard time adjusting to civilian life. And even though it's been many years, I do use different things to cope with my PTSD. And my concern is with the police department. They target not only me, but other people that have opposing views, and it's not fair. They post up outside my house, they follow me around sometimes, and I know that they also do it because I've openly spoken about how I want to abolish them. That's my viewpoint. And I don't think it's cool, because I'm tired of staying quiet, and I have evidence. I just, I'm really scared to share it because I don't know what's next. I work in the community. What's going to happen there? All these questions that run through my head. And yeah, it's really unfair the way they treat veterans. They treat black and brown people. They allow all these other people to walk around and do whatever the effing they want. Yeah. So I just wanted to bring that to everyone's attention. I know I'm not the only one, and I hope that one day they can also speak up, but that's pretty much my concern. I'm tired of them targeting me and other folks that act different, think different. I serve my country. I'm trying. It is hard, and yeah, so thank you.
Thank you for sharing that, Allie. So the people who dedicate their lives, right, are feeling unsafe by the very same people that are supposed to keep us safe, supposedly. And we talked about abolishing the police, but what does that really mean, right? That just means taking some of their money that's allocated to the Aurora Police Department, right? Right now it's almost 20%, around $78 million, to some other services that the city offers, like community organizations for youth, right? There's so many barriers for young people to be, to have some resources, whether that's dance, art, something that they can keep themselves busy and aren't on the streets or making fast money, supposedly, right? Alrighty, anyone else want to come up and share any experiences they have had with any part of the city of Aurora, or any concerns they see, any solutions, ideas that they have that they would like to be known? Anyone, this is a time, it's a safe space, right, for everyone to share. All right, we talked about the budget for the Aurora Police Department, right? So fun fact, from 2016 to 2021, we had an increase from around 50 million to almost $80 million. That's almost $30 million that has been somehow, allocated to the police. I don't know where that money came from, right? Because they keep saying they have money for youth services, but in a span of 5 years, almost $30 million. It's a lot of money. The youth and senior department only has around 400,000, not even 1 million, not even half. Any things you see that you could benefit your community, your town, your schools? Anyone else that has already been up here that would like to share something else they just remembered? is welcome to do so. Alrighty, got a volunteer? Alrighty, sir. Huh? I'm bringing one if you want.
I did not plan on speaking. I wasn't gonna say anything about the Aurora Police. 'Cause every time I speak about the Aurora Police, I ain't say I get in trouble. There's a lot of heat and a lot of pressure. But hey, it is what it is. One of the main things with the Aurora Police is, for instance, the job of a police officer is difficult, it's demanding, and it's stressful. And anybody that's a police officer that leaves their house in the morning, they don't know if they're gonna come back. To me, that's a hero. I don't have a problem with the Aurora Police doing the job. I don't have a problem with them making arrests. I don't have a problem with them being in the community. The problem is the abuse of power, the vocal aggressiveness, the physical aggressiveness, and how there's no accountability. That's the problem I have with the Aurora Police. It's not the problem that they're doing their job. For the cops, the police officers that are doing their jobs properly, hey, my hat goes off, you know, I commend you. But there's a flip side of that. Because since 1995, the Aurora Police, some of the Aurora Police have terrorized the Black and Latino community. I feel that they are domestic terrorists. And this attitude of us versus them, and anytime you criticize the Aurora Police, anytime you say anything about them, they get so defensive. And every time they think they're right in a traffic stop, they post it on Facebook with the little graphics, the narration, this is why we did this. But what about the time when you stopped the brother and you stuck your finger up his rectum? What about the time when you stopped the sister and you patted her down and felt on her breasts and her private parts? What about the time when you slammed the person's head up against the hood of the car when they weren't resisting arrest? Every time the Aurora Police Department paints their narrative when they think they're right, it's all out in the public. But on the flip side of that, when they do underhanded stuff, and they've been doing it, there's no accountability, there's no responsibility. The mayor and the city council will not hold them accountable and stick it to them. See, it doesn't matter if Chief Cross is the police chief because he's black. He's black in order to be successful, yeah, like it is what it is. But if Chief is in charge of a police department that has the same white supremacist implicit mind state that the previous chief had, then it don't matter who's in charge because it's a whole machine. It's a culture, it's an environment. You don't change environments by changing the head of the environment. You change environments by changing the goddamn environment. So I don't know what the answer is, but I know what the answer is not. The answer is not bowing down to the police, trying to be nice to them, trying to go to these little events and whatever. If you see them, act cordial, you know, I got respect. But if you add a listening session, and they saying all this stuff like last year up in the listening session, they made promise after promise after promise after promise. Didn't keep one of the promises. They talking to people about what they're gonna do and we're gonna do this and we understand. You don't understand because you're still terrorizing people. And the main person is David Bryan, aka in the hood we call him O'Brien. For years we thought his name was O'Brien because that's how it looks on his badge and like that's how he signs his name. So when we used to live in Eastwood and the Indian Trail, we go down to the police station to make a complaint. There's no O'Brien here, but they knew who we were talking about, and they still lied. And that has been a joke in the police department for damn decades. How can this dude even be a police officer? He's a corrupt cop. Doesn't deserve to have the badge on. Him and his little clique, they're like gangbangers. And they do anything that they want to do for the past 20 years. Since 1995, they have been terrorists and terrorizing us. And every time we say something against them, they park in front of your house. You get a call from somebody saying, be careful. You gotta go to work a different way. The hell with all that, man. The line is drawn in the sand. Richard Irving, Chief Cross. You need to hold your department accountable. I ain't gonna say what I used to say. You need to hold your department accountable. Hold them accountable. Or else they gotta go. The people are tired of it, man. The thing that really hurt me when we went to that park and the brothers were there, they really wanted to do something because the shorties were getting out of hand, shooting us up. They really wanted to make a change. But some of them couldn't make a change because the police constantly harassing them. Constantly just domestic terrorists. When you have brothers who used to gangbang, and now they have families, children, and mortgages, and they want to make a change. But some of them can't even get in that lane to make a change because they're fearful of what the police might do. When you have people in the community that did bad, but now they want to do right, they can't even get on the right path because the police is blocking their access. It's excuse my language, it's just fucked up. Aurora could be a beacon of hope. It could be one of the best cities, but it can't be the best city with the police and its cosmetic. We're doing everything right. There's a campaign. We want to do this right. We're doing this right. But you can't do it right if you're still lying to the people. Just imagine this. We've been going to listening sessions for 25 years. The ones that came up last year, I was so against them. I was telling people, don't go to it because it's some BS. Don't go to it, don't go to it, don't go to it. But I ended up going to two. After I told everybody, don't go to it, I ended up going to two. And I was right. I shouldn't have went because it was just the same stuff after the past 25 years. I said up in the listening session, this is crazy. We're talking about the same issue now that we talked about 25 years ago, and nothing has changed. All right, that's it.
You went to 3.
I apologize. I just get passionate and ready to go to war.
That's why I didn't want to interrupt.
You went to 3.
All right, that was powerful. 1995, I was born 1994, so. All right, so you're gonna like that one. Alrighty, guys, we have 20 minutes left that we dedicated to this open forum. Does anyone else wish to come up here and share anything? Ali?
Yeah. Hello, back up here again. I thought about something else. I thought that for the elections, how is it that we had someone run for alderman who doesn't even live 100% of his time in the district? That's a big concern. I mean, that's our money, right? How is it that he gets to do that? I just want that thought wanted to present that thought and just let it marinate, you know. It's just one of those things. Let's face it, he's a white guy. He gets to do whatever the hell he wants, right? He's got money. So, it's unfair.
Also a business owner, so he has lots of money. In Aurora, 2 businesses, right? Which probably, maybe, has a reason to do with his win. And he got public support right from the mayor. 4 businesses, not 2, times 2. That's what I was gonna say. Nicole. All right, anyone else? share anything that they are working on to improve Aurora, to address some of the things we see that the city doesn't do, that we do. Anything? No? I was like, ooh. Thank you. Please state your name.
Hi everyone, my name is Luna Webster. I help run a couple different nonprofits in the area. One of the latest projects that we have going on is a free community fridge at Indiro Coffee in downtown Aurora that's gonna go live this Friday. And it'll be food for anybody who needs it. There's no forms anybody has to fill out. There's no questions that anybody's gonna ask you. We will try our best to have the fridge filled and pantry items filled, women's hygiene products, Narcan, clothing, maybe hats, gloves, things, whatever it is that we can fit in there, we will try to provide. And that's happening, the launch is happening this Friday at Indiro, 6 p.m. during First Fridays. There are a couple of things that I've heard that people have talked to me about, some things that I've noticed as well that happen within the city of Aurora and county-wide. One of them we did with the People's Coalition. That was in conversation with the now Attorney General, Jamie Mosser, which was a citizens review board for police and sheriff at the county level. I don't think anything ever happened with that. Jamie Mosser has also kind of went her own way. She's done a couple of things that I think we need to question her about. Same thing with Ron Hain at the county level. And I believe he is up for election next year, I think. So also something we need to question, talk to. This is an opportunity to let him know that we are not happy with his policies and we're not happy with what he's done. He had an opportunity to do some good things, and you know, he's still in an elected position. We are allowed to ask questions. We're allowed to put pressure on them. At the city level, I know Lily was just here doing a presentation, and she can't really talk about what happens behind the Civilian Review Board, but they are actively listening to 2 cases right now, except they are behind a wall. We are not allowed to hear about what's happening. We don't know any of the details. And honestly, just in looking at some of the Civilian Review Board meetings or conversations, at least the public parts, their conversations are really disappointing. The point of the Civilian Review Board was to hold police accountable, to hold Aurora Police accountable. And in my opinion, it seems that the Civilian Review Board is actually taking in a lot of opinions from the police directly. Let us know how we should do X and Y thing. We're having a hard time figuring this out. Hey, police, can you give us an example of X and Y thing? Really, the Civilian Review Board should be a separate entity from the police. They should be looking at third party to get all of their information and not getting cozy with the Aurora Police, because honestly, that creates bias, right? That is not what we were looking for. That was not the point of the Civilian Review Board, and that is something that should be questioned. So when Lily said, hey, we should show up and speak and sign up for these public meetings, we should try to do that to the best of our ability, and I mean that includes anything else. And then finally, one thing I want to mention also that I've had people ask me about is gentrification in Aurora, the rising cost of rents. I've heard stories from people saying that they need to move again for XYZ time because their rent prices are increasing. And to the best of my ability, and I haven't kind of researched this too much, but I know that Aurora doesn't have tenants protections. So now we're looking at the approval of a new apartment building that's going up next to Jake Bagels across the street from Two Brothers Roundhouse. That's gonna rise the cost of rent. Something that we need to think about when we're already talking about the reasons why gangs and violence and things like this exist is because we don't have enough of the resources needed to go around the community to make things better so that we can have a livable life. Now we're talking about potentially pricing people out of the city entirely because we're going to be increasing rent prices with gentrification of Aurora, pushing out the businesses that have been here for years that have done well because we're promoting and applauding and supporting these new white-led businesses who are bringing in money to downtown because of the Paramount. I would love to see a group of organizers with some lawyers looking at tenant protections for the city. That's just something that I've noticed, and that's all I've got to say.
Thank you, Luma. Yeah, so I actually worked for an elected official before too, and they have something called constituent services. So you can really reach out to elected officials regarding anything, literally anything. They might direct you to a different organization or a different entity that takes care of that, but they are your resources as well, right? Right now, the City of Aurora too, you have to have heating. Now that we're getting cold, right? Your tenant has to provide heating. They don't have to provide AC, but heating is something that they do. It's obligatory for someone who is renting. So in case anyone does need to hear that, you can contact the City of Aurora to make sure that your tenants are providing that for you. Thank you, Luma, for sharing all those wonderful resources. Yeah, so the fridge, its grand opening is this Friday. In case anyone wants to volunteer their time too, right? It's an amazing resource. We have a pretty high population of people who are displaced, right? Who don't have a home to go to. So that's going to be amazing for our community. But it's sad that we have to rely on local organizations and nonprofits to provide that, right? That's something that the city should be providing. Alrighty, guys, we are 10 minutes left for this time. Does anyone else want to come up here and share any comment? No? Oh, got the finger rolling. So we're gonna wrap up.
Oh,
We have,
I was gonna just tell them what the Grassroots Alliance is.
okay, yes. So Nicole is gonna share a little bit about the organization that actually organized this for any upcoming news and future events.
Okay, so for those of you who don't know, the Aurora Grassroots Alliance is a new alliance. It's comprised of local grassroots organizations and nonprofits, and the reason we came about is because we felt like we were not being heard by our local government, and your message is heard louder when you are joined together. And so that's how we came about. And so I do want to take the time to really applaud all of the individuals and the organizations that are involved, not just in the Grassroots Alliance, but in the community as a whole, because it's a thankless job, and it's exhausting, and it can feel daunting, and especially when you are one of the individuals who speak out consistently about what you think is right and speak up for other people. There tends to be a target on your back. And so I just want to thank you guys, who are watching at home, and for those of you who are here for taking the time. And yes, we created this to be a safe space without city officials or police representation, but the reality remains that once it's out in the internet, they can watch it. And whether or not they don't treat you differently accordingly to you using your voice, they have that. Well, I don't think they have that right. I think it's probably against the law, but that doesn't mean that it doesn't happen. And so I want to encourage everyone to continue to speak up. And if you have not spoken up, and I'm not picking on anyone today, I'm talking about generally as a whole. As you start to come out of your comfort zone, I really encourage you to use your voice, because that's the only way that change is going to happen, is when we are collectively applying pressure, as Brandy likes to constantly say, to our elected officials and to the city and to the police. That's the only way, because otherwise, if it's only a couple of us or a few of us, we're just like annoying gnats. Whereas if there's more of us, there is a real presence that they have to reckon with. And so otherwise, what they can do, which they have done last year, was label us in grassroots organizations and individuals who have been speaking up as being keyboard warriors, probably criminals was one that they also said at the press release that they did on the uptick of crime. I'm not sure how in an uptick of crime press conference, grassroots organizations who are trying to address the systemic reasons that we have an uptick of crime, I'm not sure how we become equated with criminals. But I guess that's what you do when you want to deflect. So I want to encourage you guys to, as individuals, as organizations, to continue being involved. If you'd like to be involved with the Aurora Grassroots Alliance, reach out to us on our Facebook page, Gathering of the Grassroots, or reach out to either Brandy or myself and get connected. Follow us on Facebook. And there are different ways, if you're not affiliated with an organization and you'd like to be, there are a lot of ways that you can get involved. Indivisible Aurora is looking for board members and volunteers. Culture Stock is looking for board members and volunteers. There's always a shortage of people helping out, it seems, and there's a ton of work to do. So if you are interested in volunteering, connect with a local grassroots organization. The Grassroots Alliance is going to be posting a listing of current needs for the organizations involved with the Grassroots Alliance. But if you are not a part of the Grassroots Alliance, nor do you want to be part of the Grassroots Alliance and you have volunteer needs, still connect with us and we'll help spread the word, because that's what is important, and we want to see as many people involved as can be. So thank you for coming. And do you have closing remarks? Do you have closing remarks? Okay then. Well, thank you for coming, and take some water on your way out so that we don't have to carry it. And we appreciate you coming out. Thank you.